Hi viewers, welcome back to the channel. This is the first video in the series of lectures titled as Finite Element Theory and Practice. So this whole course is intended to promote awareness of finite element theory and practice. As we know, after all, almost all practical problems that we are likely to encounter in practice are solved using very sophisticated software packages. And it is unthinkable to practice engineering today without using some of these packages. But we should always remember that all the computing power and the engineering software packages available today are just tools. Having the best word processing program doesn't make a person good writer, but it certainly makes the job of a good writer much easier and make the writer more productive. So all these marvelous and powerful tools available today should be used with a pinch of salt. As a motivating example, let's see two famous quotes from two really famous persons. The first one comes from Richard Feynman. He says, "There is nothing so wrong with analysis as believing the answer. Uncertainties appear everywhere. When using a mathematical model, careful attention must be given to uncertainties in the model." This is taken from the Rogers Commission report on Space Shuttle Challenger accident, which was a really sad incident in the history of human space exploration, which caused the loss of 7 people. And coming to the second quote, this is my favorite. This comes from the famous author R.D. Cook, who wrote a lot of books on finite element theory and practice. He tells, "One can now make mistakes with more confidence than ever before. Although finite element method can make a good engineer better, it can make a poor engineer more dangerous." I think that sums up the introduction to the course. So it doesn't matter whether we have these powerful tools or not, we must still have a thorough understanding of the fundamentals, develop a feel for the physical phenomena, and we should be able to put the data into proper perspective and make sound engineering judgments. So with that, we will move to the first example in our hand, that is single bar element. So the whole course is arranged in such a way that we will learn through examples. So this is a simple one-dimensional finite element used to model a slender structural member loaded axially. Through this example, I would like to convey the concepts of linear static analysis and what how do finite element equations look like. So this is the example that we are going to see, where here we have a bar of cross-sectional area 100 square. It is made up of steel. These are the properties corresponding to steel, and it is acted upon by an axial load of 1000 Newton, and it is fixed here at this location. The cross section, for the time being, you can assume it as a rectangle like this. This course is not specifically meant to make you an expert in one particular commercial software, but this is meant to convey certain concepts which are applicable across which are applicable across multiple commercial software packages. But for the time being, I'm using ANSYS APDL to solve this problem, and what I have shown here is the command stream which I used to create this model in APDL. Since this being the first example, I will run through this command stream. But if you're not aware of these things, you can skip ahead, because this is just the technique to create the model in APDL. So this command essentially tells that we need an element type which is link 1. In ANSYS APDL, they call it the 2D spar element. This element permits only uniaxial tension or compression with 2 degrees of freedom at each node. Bending is ignored. Here I am defining my material properties. Here I am defining a real constant whose value is 100, because the cross-section area of my bar is 200. In order to assign that, I'm defining a real constant. Here I'm creating two nodes, one at the origin and the other at 100 mm along the x-axis. I am assigning element type and the cross-sectional area to the element. Now I'm creating the element between node 1 and node 2. I'm fixing all degrees of freedom for node 1 because node 1 corresponds to the fixed end. At node 2, I'm applying a load of 1000 Newton along the x direction, along the positive x direction. If I had to apply it in the other direction, I should have put a minus 1000 over here. Now I'm solving it. Then I'm looking at the x direction displacement. Make sense? So this is how the x direction displacement will look like. Let me zoom out for a better visibility. So as you can see over here, at this point displacement is 0, and as we move ahead to the right, displacement increases, and the maximum displacement is 0.05 mm. There is another important concept in finite element analysis, that is use consistent units. That's topic for another day, so for the time being let's not talk about that. Does the answer make sense? To check that, we can use our closed form solutions. Since this problem being very simple, the deflection is given by this expression, where P is the load, L is the length of the bar, A is the area of cross section, and A is the Young's modulus. We can simply plug in the values and check whether we are getting 0.05 mm. Once you plug in the values, you will get this answer. So it is matching, or it is in consensus with the closed form values. And here you see when I evaluated this using closed form expressions, I used consistent units. So the same holds true in analysis also. When you are modeling things in mm, you better enter your Young's modulus values in megapascal, which is corresponding to Newton per mm square, and your force values better you put in, enter in your values in Newton. So that's it. Like I will do a definite like a detailed video on consistent units, but for the time being this is what the usage of consistent unit in finite element means. I have a very simple problem to you. Now, what will happen to the displacement if I augment this value to 2000 Newton? What will happen? Hold your thought, come back with an answer. So, since we are doing a linear static analysis, when we increase the load by a factor of 2, the resulting displacement should also get augmented by the same factor. So, let's see what happens when we increase the load. I don't think I have a plot for that, but if you do the analysis by just changing the load, your deflection should be 0.05 times 2, that corresponds to 0.01 mm. The load is no longer 1000 Newton, load is 2000 Newton. So things scale linearly when you are doing a linear static analysis. This won't be the case when you do a nonlinear analysis, because you cannot scale your results in when there is some amount of some non-linearity in your problem, and the method of superposition also doesn't hold true. Another question, what do you think about the free body diagram of the bar will look like? So if this is the bar, I'm applying a load of 2000 Newton here, and I have fixed here, I've given a fixed boundary condition over here. So there should be a reaction force of 2000 Newton. In ANSYS APDL, there is a command PRRF to get the reaction forces. If you are using a different software, the concept of reaction forces holds good, but there will be another command which gives you the reaction forces. That's it. So this is how the free body diagram will look like. So the force acting at the location where we have provided a boundary condition, that is called reaction force. Even though in this example the reaction force appears to be pretty straightforward, when you do complex model, understanding the reaction force in an assembly is very important. Just a moment before we wrote this expression for the displacement in a bar like this, I can rewrite the equation like this, where the load acting in the bar can be written as a product of these two quantities. Let me just replace the u by delta. Actually, all finite element equations resemble this. Why I'm saying that, when you have many degrees of freedom, here in this case you have just one equation, but when you go to multiple degrees of freedom, this equation takes a form like this, where p is no more a scalar now, but p is a vector, and this quantity, which was the stiffness of your bar, that becomes a stiffness matrix that takes the shape of a stiffness matrix. If this is of size n by 1, then your stiffness matrix will be of size n cross n times the deflection, which is again a vector now of size n comma 1. So you can extend the concept to a finite element model which is having multiple degrees of freedom as well. Just wanted to tell you that. So always keep this in mind. And for a linear static analysis, the beauty is that the stiffness matrix doesn't change with respect to load, or doesn't change with respect to the boundary conditions. But when you do a nonlinear analysis, this K becomes a function of maybe the displacement, maybe the stress in the element, and brings in a lot more complexities to the model. Good. The final aspect I want to address. Let's say now I am slightly modifying my boundary conditions. I am fixing on either ends. What will be the stress state? What will be the displacement inside the bar? That was question 1. I have a question 2 as well. Now, say the initial problem itself, the bar, the same bar, but this time instead of applying 100 Newton, or I mean instead of applying 1000 Newton, I'm pulling this pulling this face by a displacement of 0.005 mm. What will be the reaction force at this location? What will be the reaction force at this location? So I hope you will think about both these questions in your mind. Answer will be there in the next video, and where we will discuss more about the single bar elements and linear static analysis. To summarize, we just saw it is very important to understand the finite element theory, and we saw a very simple example where we had a single bar element. We applied the load, then we saw the displacements, and it was in consensus with the closed form solutions. We increased the load, the displacement also increased by the similar factor. That shows we are doing a linear analysis. And I also explained that in a general finite element analysis, this is the form it takes. The equations take this form, where this is your stiffness matrix, this is your displacement vector, and this is your load vector. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we will discuss more about this example problem, and I will have also answers to these two problems. Thanks.